The world watches with bated breath as a new crisis unfolds, one with potentially devastating consequences for Japan. This island nation, known for its technological prowess and economic strength, faces a threat unlike any it has encountered before. The danger is not military aggression or political turmoil, but a force far more insidious and relentless: climate change. While Japan grapples with the growing impacts of a warming world, a disturbing trend is emerging across the globe. European nations, once at the forefront of climate action, are scaling back their commitments, diverting funds from crucial climate aid to bolster their military defenses. This shift in priorities has sent shockwaves across the international community, raising concerns about the future of global climate action and its implications for vulnerable countries like Japan. In a move that has stunned many, European nations are increasingly prioritizing military spending over climate change mitigation and adaptation. Faced with geopolitical instability and rising tensions, governments across Europe are opting to fortify their defenses, often at the expense of previously pledged climate aid. The United Kingdom, for example, recently announced a significant reduction in its international climate finance commitments, diverting billions of pounds towards defense spending. This shift in priorities is not limited to the UK. Several other European countries have also signaled their intention to scale back climate aid, citing budgetary constraints and the pressing need to address security concerns. This trend has sparked outrage among environmental groups and developing nations, who argue that abandoning climate commitments will have dire consequences for the planet and its most vulnerable populations. Japan, an island nation located in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, is particularly susceptible to the impacts of climate change. Rising sea levels, more frequent and intense typhoons, and extreme heat events pose significant threats to Japan's infrastructure, economy, and way of life. The country's densely populated coastal areas are particularly vulnerable to sea level rise and storm surges, while its mountainous terrain makes it prone to landslides and flooding. The reduction in European climate aid could not come at a worse time for Japan. As the country grapples with the escalating costs of climate change adaptation, every dollar counts. The loss of crucial financial assistance from Europe could hinder Japan's ability to invest in essential infrastructure upgrades, early warning systems, and disaster preparedness measures, leaving it more vulnerable to the devastating impacts of a warming world. In recent years, Japan has experienced a surge in extreme weather events, a stark reminder of the country's vulnerability to climate change. In 2024, Typhoon Hagibis, one of the most powerful storms to hit Japan in decades, caused widespread devastation, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The storm brought record-breaking rainfall, triggering massive floods and landslides that claimed the lives of over 100 people and caused billions of dollars in damage. Just a year later in 2025, Japan was once again battered by extreme weather. A record-breaking heat wave engulfed the country, sending temperatures soaring to unprecedented levels. The intense heat resulted in widespread power outages, heat stroke cases, and agricultural losses, highlighting the growing threat climate change poses to Japan's infrastructure, public health, and food security. Japan, the world's third-largest economy, is already grappling with a multitude of economic challenges. The country's aging population, shrinking workforce, and sluggish economic growth have put a strain on government finances, making it increasingly difficult to address pressing issues like climate change. The reduction in European climate aid adds another layer of complexity to Japan's economic woes, potentially diverting resources away from essential domestic programs. The Japanese government has pledged to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, an ambitious goal that will require significant investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and other climate-friendly technologies. However, the loss of European climate aid could make it more challenging for Japan to meet its climate targets, potentially jeopardizing its transition to a more sustainable future. Section 6. A world on edge. The European decision to prioritize military spending over climate action has sent ripples of concern across the globe. This shift in focus has sparked debates among policymakers, environmentalists, and the general public. Many are questioning the long-term implications of such a decision. Many fear that this shift in priorities could undermine international efforts to combat climate change, setting a dangerous precedent for other nations to follow. The concern is that if one major player steps back, Others might feel justified in doing the same, leading to a domino effect. The Paris Agreement, a landmark global accord aimed at limiting global warming, relies on international cooperation and financial assistance to succeed. Without the commitment of key nations, the agreement's goals become increasingly difficult to achieve. The reduction in European climate aid could weaken the Paris Agreement, making it more difficult to achieve its ambitious goals. This financial shortfall could stall renewable energy projects and other critical initiatives aimed at reducing carbon emissions. It also sends a discouraging signal to developing nations, many of which are already struggling to cope with the impacts of climate change, that they cannot rely on developed countries to fulfill their financial commitments. This lack of support could exacerbate existing vulnerabilities and hinder their ability to adapt to changing climate conditions. This could erode trust and hinder progress on global climate action, with potentially devastating consequences for the planet. The urgency to act has never been greater, and the world watches closely as these decisions unfold, hoping for a renewed commitment to a sustainable future. Section 7. China, a parallel struggle? Adding to the complexity of the situation is the unfolding economic crisis in China. The country, which has been a global economic leader for decades, is now facing unprecedented challenges. Once considered an economic powerhouse, China is now grappling with its own set of challenges, including a real estate bubble, soaring debt levels, and slowing economic growth. The construction boom that once fueled its rapid expansion has come to a halt, leaving many projects unfinished. The Chinese government's response to these challenges, including a crackdown on certain sectors of the economy, has been met with mixed reactions. While some applaud the efforts to curb excesses, others worry about the long-term impacts on innovation and entrepreneurship. This has created uncertainty in global markets, as investors and businesses worldwide try to navigate the ripple effects of China's economic policies. Additionally, the economic strain has raised concerns about the potential for social unrest. Protests and public dissatisfaction are becoming more visible, adding another layer of complexity to the situation. The economic woes of China, coupled with the European shift away from climate action, paint a concerning picture of global instability. The interconnectedness of these issues cannot be overstated. As the world's two largest economies grapple with internal challenges, their ability to address pressing global issues like climate change may be compromised. This is a critical moment for international cooperation and leadership. The stakes are high, and the outcomes of these struggles will have far-reaching implications. Both nations must find a way to balance their internal issues while contributing to global solutions. Their ability to address pressing global issues like climate change may be compromised. The environmental consequences of inaction are dire. This could lead to a vicious cycle, where economic instability exacerbates climate change, which in turn further destabilizes the global economy. The urgency for a coordinated response has never been greater. The world watches closely as these two giants navigate their parallel struggles, hoping for resolutions that will stabilize not just their own economies, but the global landscape as well. Section 8. The high cost of inaction. The consequences of inaction on climate change are far-reaching and potentially catastrophic. As global temperatures continue to rise, we can expect to see more extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and widespread disruptions to ecosystems and human societies. The economic costs of climate change are already being felt around the world, from damage caused by extreme weather events to lost productivity due to heat stress. The human cost of climate change is perhaps even more alarming. Climate change is already displacing millions of people around the world, as rising sea levels, droughts, and other climate-related disasters force people to flee their homes. The World Bank estimates that by 2050, climate change could displace over 140 million people within their own countries, creating a massive humanitarian crisis. Section 9. A call to action, our shared destiny. The challenges posed by climate change are complex and interconnected, requiring a coordinated global response. From the melting glaciers in the Arctic to the drought-stricken lands in Africa, the impacts of climate change are felt everywhere. Flooded streets in one part of the world can lead to food shortages in another, illustrating the intricate web of consequences we face. The European decision to prioritize military spending over climate action is a stark reminder that we cannot afford to let short-term interests overshadow the urgent need to address this global crisis. This choice highlights a dangerous trend where immediate concerns are given precedence over long-term sustainability, putting our future at risk. Now, more than ever, we need global leaders to step up and demonstrate their commitment to climate action. Their decisions today will shape the world of tomorrow. It is imperative that they show true leadership by making bold and necessary changes to combat climate change. We must hold our elected officials accountable for their promises and demand that they prioritize climate action in their policies and budgets. Public pressure and civic engagement are crucial in ensuring that our leaders do not waver in their commitments. We must invest in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and other climate-friendly technologies to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. These investments are not just about reducing emissions, they are about creating a sustainable future for all. By supporting innovations in clean energy, we can pave the way for a greener economy and a healthier planet. Every step we take towards renewable energy is a step away from the destructive path of fossil fuel dependency. And we must support developing nations in their efforts to adapt to the impacts of climate change and build more resilient societies. These communities are often the most vulnerable and need our help to implement sustainable practices and technologies. The time for action is now, before it's too late. We are in a race against time, and every moment counts. Delaying action will only exacerbate the problems we face. The future of our planet, and the well-being of generations to come, depend on it. Our actions today will determine the legacy we leave behind. Let us work together to ensure a thriving, sustainable world for all.